Today on the Callahan podcast, well, bad news for you, Keith Oldman. We didn't boycott the Masters. We watched. We enjoyed it. Congratulations to Hideki Matsuyama for who won it for Japan and who made it interesting in the final few holes. Also, the Boston Red Sox announced they're no longer going to donate to Little League Baseball because it disproportionately engages boys over girls. If you can believe that. Also, Jason Whitlock is banned, is booted off Twitter. You're not going to believe why. Jimmy Kimmel embarrasses himself with Hunter Biden. We will play you some of that. And Donald Trump Jr. retweets me. That's the big news from the weekend. We'll get into all that and more today on the Callahan podcast, brought to you by DCU. Do you love your car? Hate your car payment? No problem. Refinance your car today with DCU, and they could help lower your monthly payment, lower your interest rate, or both. Applying is easy, and their loan experts will help you find the loan term and the payment that fits into your budget. Get out of that high-rate loan and get the interest rate and the payment you deserve from DCU. Learn more and apply today at dcu.org/refinance. Insured by NCUA. Membership required. All right, Callahan, let's do this.
This is the Jerry Callahan Podcast.
Well, as promised, I watched, every minute of the Masters. I was a little disappointed for most of Sunday sitting there. It was kind of boring, kind of dull, and Matsuyama was in control. And I was about, 2 or 3 minutes behind because I'd paused it from one point. And then I'd tweet out how boring it is. It was so bad, it almost made me want to watch baseball. And immediately people are like, what are you, nuts? Because a minute later, Matsuyama hits it into the water over the green on 15. And then a couple minutes later, Xander Schauffele makes the worst golf shot in Masters history, or at least the most expensive golf shot. According to Xander, it was a good golf shot. But the whole time I'm thinking, and maybe you feel the same way, Colin, and the whole time I'm thinking, this is just awful that they're playing this tournament, even though most people in Georgia would like you to show an ID when you vote. It just seemed wrong. I mean, I'm watching, I'm saying they only want 17 days of early voting. They're limiting the number of drop boxes, and here we are playing the Masters. By the way, if you think that the Masters itself is some kind of throwback, to the Jim Crow days and some kind of racist, you were sorely disappointed that a Japanese man won. The first time a Japanese man has won the Masters, the first Asian-born man to win the Masters, I believe. And just the reaction from the people, from the patrons, not the fans, the patrons. By the way, don't you always wonder, how do the announcers not screw that up? They're not allowed to say fans. They have to say patrons. They're not allowed to say front nine, back nine. They have to say first nine, second nine. But that rule doesn't apply next week when they cover a tournament, or last week, just this week. And they never screw it up. I should say never. I watch a lot. And they rarely break those little Masters rules. You never hear Jim Nantz say back nine. He just doesn't. That's or true. Any of the guys, Trevor Illman, they don't say fans because they're not supposed to. Actually, who said fans? Matsuyama said it at the podium afterwards. He was translator, said something, thank you, fans. And I'm like, oh, he's in trouble now. But the reaction was great. Everyone was happy for him. Everyone likes him. Everyone likes the idea of a whole country celebrating at whatever it was, 5 a.m, 6 a.m. in Japan. It just felt like it felt like the Masters. Didn't feel like there was anything political about it. Were
you the one who tweeted about the business ramifications for him? Did you tweet that article? That was from Sport.
I retweeted somebody, which is amazing. I think our friend Mike McCann had a story on this. It's amazing. You're thinking every time I watch golf, every time I watch a golfer and see what he's got on his hat, his shirt, his bag, you're saying, how much money do they actually make on the side? For most of them, the purse, whatever they get for the tournament, is secondary. They make so much in endorsements. I mean, you see the commercial. You see Justin Rose constantly on Morgan Stanley commercials, and he's making more as a Morgan Stanley spokesman than he's making on the golf course. Well, yeah, with Matsuyama, it's a whole different level because he's the biggest star in his country and all over Asia. So I'll get the story. They did an estimate, quick one, on what it's worth to him. $600 million. They estimate $600 million to win one golf tournament, to hang in there. Um, and I thought it was a lot when they did the calculation of Xander Schauffele, who could have, if he hadn't screwed up the 16th hole, get a triple bogey, his first triple bogey in 1,042 holes in majors, his first triple. And it is kind of funny. We'll get to Xander in a second, because that was just comical what he did on that hole, and costly. But Matsuyama is such a big star, I guess, in Japan, that there's so many endorsements and they're coming from so many directions. And by the way, he'll be able to cash in on this for the rest of his life. He's 29. He'll be cashing in on his green jacket, his Masters win, till he's dead 50 years from now. And,
well, if you said Dustin Johnson, if you said his win was worth $600 million, I'd call you an asshole and say that's absurd. But you go into this article, Japan, I guess the U.S. is the only country with more golf courses than Japan, and Matsuyama owns the market now. Like, he literally owns it. So it makes total sense, which is literally the craziest story. He makes $10 million a year just on sponsorships right now alone, which is wild.
Yeah, I'm looking at it too. It's no, it's in Sportico, a sports business website. And then Nick Faldo said it first. He is most likely to light the torch or carry the torch at the Japanese Olympics, the Tokyo Olympics, which is this year. Nobody's boycotting that one, right? We're cool with that. Everyone's going to Tokyo, and he'll be the biggest star at the biggest event, in Japanese sports history, which is pretty cool. I mean, they talked about all the, because they don't have that much land in Japan. They talked about all those triple decker driving ranges, and everyone out there with and here's how I picture them all doing it. Young kids, old people, whatever, having that pause at the top of their backswing because they're imitating Hideki Matsuyama. But good for him. He's going to make $600 million, which is probably what Tiger made in a year in his prime, right? Tiger was the first $1 billion athlete. I think Rory's close to that too, even though he doesn't. He looks more human than anything. See that shot by Rory on whatever it was, Friday, when he just hit one dead right into the azaleas, lost the ball.
Yes,
didn't see a lot of that from Matsuyama.
I thought we were in trouble. I mean, like you said, it was kind of a steady. You wanted the drama on Masters Sunday, but you go Friday and you see, what was it? Koepka, DJ, and Rory all missed the cut. So you're kind of missing. You're literally missing your star power going into the weekend. You're missing everybody except for Justin Thomas and who else?
Spieth was there, and he's a star. But it was. I was watching, thinking, what are the ratings going to be? Obviously, the ratings are great in Japan, but when you have Matsuyama versus Schauffele, who's not. I mean, he's a great player, but he's not a big star. And then you have Justin Rose fading, and then you have that kid, the Owen Wilson lookalike there.
Yes.
Zalatoris, he got more FaceTime than anybody, and he got more attention than anybody, and I guess he deserves it. He's a hell of a player, but he's and I made some wisecrack about him on Twitter, and people are, you don't understand, he's great, he's going to be a star, and he probably will be, but I was sick of him. I wanted someone else to make a run. I wanted it to be tied, with 3 holes to play. That's the greatest, hour in sports TV in my mind, is when the Masters is tied or it's all up for grabs with an hour to go. I mean, I love that. I was waiting for that. I was hoping for that. I got it sort of, kind of. Matsuyama goes over the green on 15 into the water, and Faldo called this one. He said he shouldn't even try to get on the green, just play for the bogey. He did, which was really smart. And I mean, he just had a great touch around the green. Matsuyama did all day, and he handled the pressure. That's what it's all about. He handled the pressure. I look at the 18th hole and I say, I wouldn't care if I had a 10-shot lead. I'd be in the trees. It's an amazingly difficult looking tee shot, amazingly difficult looking hole. And he had 130 yards on his approach and put it in the sand, which was a little weird. That's a choke right there. But he ended up getting the bogey, winning the tournament by 1 over the Owen Wilson looking guy who I guess looks like, I don't know the caddy's name, in Billy Madison. but that went viral. He looks like the goofy caddy and Billy Madison. Adam Sandler was tweeting at Zalatoris. Zalatoris was tweeting back at Adam Sandler. So that was a little bit of fun after the tournament was over. But back to so Matsuyama opens the door to whoever, Zalatoris or Schauffele. They step up to 16. This is right after he went in the water, bogeyed the hole, gave Schauffele a chance, and Schauffele puts it in the water on 16, which, as somebody said, you don't ever. I think Nan said you never see that anymore. I mean, it's an easy looking hole. Let's be honest. Even when it's 181 yards, you hit it to the right, it rolls down to that pin placement. It doesn't look that difficult. For some reason, Schauffele decides to go right at the pin, hits the bank into the water, goes to his drop zone over the green, ends up, with a 6, a triple bogey. He's out of the tournament. Somebody did the math. It's more than $500,000.
Oh.
More than $500,000 it cost him to go from second to a tied from third. He ends up with $667,000. And I know money's not an issue, that Schauffele's got plenty and he's always in contention in the majors and he's making a fortune. He's a great, great player. But he defends the decision and said it was a great shot. I flushed it. I'm like, what? If that's what you meant to do, that's a worse choke job than I thought. That's a mental mistake, not a physical mistake. If you actually thought that was a good shot, and by the way, what's her face, Dottie Pepper, who just states the obvious constantly. Dottie Pepper, he hit a wall of wind. Some people, and I understand it's kind of the way it is in golf, they can't wait a second to apologize for the players, to make excuses for the players. The ball was in the air, and she's ready to say, make an excuse for him, hits the bag, goes in the water, kind of pisses away his chance of winning the Masters. What does Dottie Pepper do? Wow, that hit a wall of wind. No, that was way too far left, Dottie. If he went 10, 15, 20 feet to the right, he ends up with, at worst, a 3, right? Maybe a 2. Maybe he wins the Masters. He loses it on that decision to go right at the pin. And he, in the press conference, he said he defended it, but I understand guys do that. They don't want to admit they choked ever. And I understand, but to have the announcers say, that was a great shot. He just hit the wind. Ooh. It was a terrible move, terrible second, the drop zone shot over the green, just blows it with that.
He was also playing so well. What did he just?
He's so good.
He just birdied 3 out of his last 4 holes or something like that. Like worst case scenario, you got a second place finish, but you come out of it looking like a rock star. And, there's just a lot of interest around him right now. It's insane to me that he tried to go right at the flag.
And everyone says the same thing. He's 29, I believe, and they say the same thing. He's going to win one. It's only a matter of time. But they say that about everybody. And he is good in the majors. He's good on the tough courses and under pressure for the most part. And he said, he was saying all the right things afterwards. But we will see when they go to Kiawah for the PGA if he'll be involved. I mean, let's be honest. That triple bogey is one of those things nobody ever forgets. Hitting into the water on a hole that looks easy, especially if you just want to get your 3 and get to the next hole. I mean, what was it at that point? He was 2 back, so
yes.
He
would have been down. He would have been down 1 going into 18. Right.
He birdied 15 and Matsuyama bogeyed, so he picked up 2 shots on the 15th hole, kept the momentum going. If he just got the 3, right, he'd have been down. Pressure would have been on, much more pressure would have been on Matsuyama. Can't go playing it safe on 17 and 18. Would have been a whole different deal. But he blew it. He only made $667,000.
Tough day on the job. $675.
But we'll see. We'll get the ratings. The ratings were up early in the tournament. There was no protests. I mean, I remember talking about that a couple of weeks ago when the voting thing happened in Georgia, that there'll be protests and there'll be some issues at Augusta. No such thing. Went off without a hitch. In fact, the TV broadcast, the TV presentation, to me, gets better every year. They get these aerial photographs and they're showing, through the bushes. And the Masters used to be so limited. They only allowed cameras on the back 9, the second 9. Now they get the whole tournament. They get, all kinds of different angles. It's a great, great TV event, saved by Matsuyama going in the water and and whatever his name is, Will Zalatoris, making a little bit of a run, and that's another guy who's going to be good. Will Zal, got to get him a cheeseburger. Get him on the Bryson DeChambeau diet. That guy is just rail thin. He's not a kid either. He's 24 years old, and he's been on the tour for a couple of years. But he's going to be good. He was bombing it. He looked cool. He looked calm. He looked like he's got a little bit of personality. I mocked him a little on Twitter. I took it back because he was kind of playful with Adam Sandler. So we'll see how he does going forward.
Did you see the viral video yesterday of Billy Horschel slamming the club into his golf bag? That was yes. I like relatable moments at the Masters.
Right, and he had to go wading in the water twice, back-to-back days. He had to take his shoes off and go in the water. The best part of the whole tournament, in my mind, was whatever another Asian guy, the guy who won the Players, Kim, slamming his putter, breaking it, which you don't normally see from any of these guys, especially a young Asian guy. They tend not to, blow up like that and go all, Pat Perez or Patrick Reed. Slams his putter, breaks it, has to putt with a 3-wood, and he putted great. It only was 3 or 4 holes, and I'm thinking, the putter doesn't even matter. These guys are so good. They could putt with a 3-wood and had a nice stroke. He didn't hit any long putts, but he 2-putted everything, and it wasn't a problem at all. I think we need to see more of that. More guys breaking their clubs and having to play without a putter or without whatever. That was kind of fun. Plus, you get to see him actually throwing a little tantrum, which is always nice. These guys are so cool. Look at Xander after blowing it on 16. Any normal human being is
all an act. That was all. Are you talking about his post game? Are you talking about the interview after?
No, I'm talking about the way they recover. Yeah. They blow it, get a triple bogey, and the next tee shot on 17 is striped down the middle 320 yards. There's no human being, no whatever, just no. I don't care how good you are. It could be a 3 handicap or 2. No normal human being can bounce back like that. These guys are amazing. It always amazes me how they can go from, he did it early in the tournament. He had like a bogey double, and then went on a run, had whatever it was, 4 straight birdies. They just get it together. They keep it together so well. I'm always impressed with that.
That's going to be part of training now, don't you think? Like, it's not just about the driving range and the swing technique or whatever. I guarantee you a lot of these younger players have mental coaches. You know what I mean? They have right now.
Yes, I knew a guy. I was friends with a guy who was a shrink. He's a Harvard-trained psychiatrist, and he was a personal shrink for a number of players. And they would just call him before, like a tournament. They're in contention. They had a little phone session. He didn't travel around much. I mean, if it was local, he would, but he did call up and need a little tune-up, and he'd give him a session of 20 minutes on the phone before the tournament. That's all. These guys all have shrinks. Like Schauffele was talking about his team, his coach and his caddy and his father and his shrink. They all have them because, let's be honest, they have unlimited funds, as we could see. Hideki Matsuyama has unlimited money now, so he can spend whatever it takes. But it was good to have patrons back, fans back, noise back. It's good to see that place back and better than ever. And now everything seems normal going forward, unlike last year when everything was canceled and there were no fans and there was all kinds of weird rules. It's good that the virus is gone and the players aren't wearing masks. Unlike, those New Hampshire track kids, those 16-year-old kids running track in New Hampshire, they're not making grown men wear masks on the golf course. Caddies, players, some fans were, but they were also, drinking beer and eating, and it didn't look like it was an issue, which is good. No, COVID couldn't stop this Masters. It was good. I wasn't great. Wasn't Tiger last or 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago. Wasn't Tiger 2 years ago, but didn't you end up feeling good? Like watching Matsuyama and saying, that's cool. Watching a guy win for his country and watching a guy who's going to be an Olympic hero. It just seemed, and everyone seems to like him and everyone seems happy for him. And
no, you felt good because there was some drama at the end. That's all that matters. If he just ran away with it like it looked like he was going to do, you're right, and you tweeted the right thing initially, even though you ended up being wrong. But it was a bore fest until those few moments, and then it turned into something. So you left feeling good, which is all that matters.
And I love this. I just tweeted, it was so bad I almost watched baseball and immediately why are you so miserable? Why do you hate everything? I'm going, what? I'm just watching this tournament, hoping for some drama. Wasn't getting any drama. Make a wisecrack about baseball, which seems pretty boring at the start of this season. We'll see how that goes. But it ended up being okay. I had a good time. I love when the Masters goes to commercial and before you can get out of your seat, they're back. It's like a 1-minute commercial for Mercedes. And we get to see the same commercial 900 times about how Mercedes is all their factories are going to be powered by wind. And I'm going, what Mercedes driver, what Mercedes person gives a damn whether the Mercedes factory is powered by wind? I mean, just show me the car driving on the highway. Tell me how great it is. They're great cars. Why do I give a damn if they're made in a factory with a windmill? God, that was strange. And I didn't mind it because it was so quick. Boom, you go to commercial. Minute later, they're back showing somebody's teeing off for putting. It's so different from what we're used to, not just golf, what you name it, football, baseball. You're so used to just being overwhelmed with commercials and sick of commercials. And the Masters does it different. And the Masters does it great. I love the Masters. It's too bad we got to wait a year. Well, I mean, there'll be a PGA in a couple of weeks, and it'll be commercial after commercial after commercial, and you'll be like, okay, I missed the Masters, but it was a good one. I enjoyed it. The 85th, is that what they kept saying? 85th or whatever, playing of the Masters. It was good, and it didn't ruin it. Well, it took away from it the fact that they actually want people to show their ID when they vote in Georgia. Took away from it a little, but not completely.
I think early in the week there was a protest, but it got no buzz. Like I think
it was there. I didn't even notice. I mean, I'm sure there's stupid people like Keith Oldman, or crazy people. He's not stupid, he's crazy, who did a whole thing about boycotting the Masters. I don't think that took off, Keith. I hate to break it to you, Keith, old buddy, but that didn't actually fly. There were no boycotts that I saw or heard of that mattered at all. And nobody, by the way, that I saw even talked about it. They weren't asking players or announcers there was no mention of this made up Joe Biden scandal about Jim Crow, this lie that our president is spreading about Jim Crow. Didn't happen. By the way, today, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow when we get more details. Today, Saturday, there was a call with over 100 CEOs, business leaders, including one NFL team owner, to talk about election law in the country. So they're organizing this cabal of business leaders to advance the Democrat agenda. Of course, they're not going to say, yeah, we need more voter integrity and voter security. They're going to say, we need to stop suppression and make sure anyone can vote as many times as they want with no ID. It's scary. If this happened under Donald Trump, people would be saying this is fascism. Hundreds of business leaders, unelected leaders, getting together and deciding how they're going to pressure people, pressure whatever, events, sports, pressure the legislators to advance their agenda on voter suppression or voter voting law. We'll see how that goes. We'll find out. I hope it's not Bob Kraft. I hope the one owner.
Oh no, it's Arthur Blank.
Oh, is it? Home Depot.
Is he a big lefty?
I think he's. I think he tends to lean that way. Yes.
Because he came out. I read that same read the article.
That was Arthur Blank. I just saw a team owner. I didn't even know.
Well, he's claiming that fans now want more political endorsements by teams and own. I'm like, what? Like what room are you reading? Yeah, that's what he said. Like what room are you reading right now?
Well, that brings us to our next topic, because I beg to differ, Mr. Blank. I beg to differ, and every time I think of him, I know he's a billionaire who started Home Depot, has made a fortune. Got a pretty good reputation, but don't you just look at him and think of 28-3? I mean, it's like looking at Dan Quinn or Matt Ryan. Those guys are permanently brandished with 28-3 on their foreheads. It doesn't matter what they accomplish in life. If they don't go back and even if they win a Super Bowl, they will never be, I'll never think of them as anything but chokers who blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. But this story came out Saturday. It was in the Boston Herald, of course. I mean, I'm certainly not going to see anything about it in the Boston Globe, which is owned and controlled by the owners of the Boston Red Sox. And we talk about the Red Sox a lot. Not a fan of ownership. Neither are most people in New England. It's a remarkable thing that John Henry and Linda Pizzuti and the rest of Red Sox ownership have done. They've won 4 World Series, and they're still despised in New England. That's quite an accomplishment. And I realize, politically, I don't agree with them, but they're just so tone deaf. They don't understand the fan base. They live in this bubble, this globe, Nesson Red Sox bubble. And this story is just so perfectly Red Sox. This story that was in the Boston Herald. I don't think it was in the, although it could have been in the Globe somehow. They would have written it differently. But the Red Sox, if you missed it, are discontinuing their donations to Little League Baseball. That's the Little League. And the reason they give, and I'll discuss some of the people that defended this, because they're out there. There's people who align politically. There's your typical New England Democrat, Liz Warren Democrat, who love Red Sox ownership. But trust me, in the sports world, they're in the minority. And I mean, they might control local government and local institutions, but sports fans don't like Red Sox owners. The Red Sox owners who have turned against their own fans, 4 or 5 times over the last 20 years. Anytime anyone accuses Red Sox fans of being racists, the Red Sox owners side with the accuser. They side with the Tory hunters against their own fans, against the evidence too, by the way. But this one is not that serious. It's kind of laughable. Red Sox are discontinuing their donations to Little League because Little League, I got the actual quote here, more often than not, disproportionately engages boys versus girls because there are more boys playing Little League. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Cullinane. The Boston Red Sox are an all-male baseball team, correct? In an all-male baseball league. Yep. And as we know, most of the management is all-male, white male, and typical hypocrisy from the Boston Red Sox. Their spokesman, Zineb Curran, as woke as you get in that position, she says this, get all the words, quote, "This is part of a larger shift in the Red Sox Foundation's youth baseball and softball strategy to more equitably support leagues in Massachusetts and New England. Little League only accounts for a fraction of youth leagues and more often than not disproportionately engages boys over girls. It's baseball, Zineb. Of course it disproportionately engages boys over girls. There are lots of girls softball leagues that are affiliated with Little League, but it doesn't matter. With the Boston Red Sox, it's always, how woke do we look? Just how progressive can we be? And it's not a lot of money. It was $83,000 to 167 Little League organizations. You do the math, not a huge donation, but as always, it's all about, the look. It's all about the appearance, and nobody wants to appear woke like the Boston Red Sox. As we've pointed out before, they have the biggest Black Lives Matter sign in Major League Baseball. I believe it's 267 feet. It's amazing how big that sign is, and they will never hesitate to put it on the board and, express themselves. Virtue signal, I believe the term is. This is more virtue signaling. The Boston Red Sox are not going to donate to. I can't even look at this without laughing.
When I first saw that over the weekend,
you thought I had to be wrong, didn't you? When you saw I tweeted.
Well, the first thing I thought of is like $90,000. Like, that's it, first and foremost. Like, that's all we're talking about here. Why don't you just double it up and donate it to softball programs? That was like, why would you allow yourself to get these headlines out there? And then at the end of the day, they win because the only person talking about it is it's nowhere other than the Boston Herald. So right. Nobody really knows about it. Nobody knows that they're cutting youth donations.
It is. And I find this amazing that no one, of course, has any problem, or no one on their side has any problem with one guy and his wife, his trophy wife, they control the Boston Globe. That's his vanity project, losing millions, but he doesn't care. John Henry wants to control the message and the messaging. Owns Nesson, New England Sports Network, controls that completely. Controls WEEI, my former station, has complete control for some reason that the company actually pays him and then allows him control over the station. It's insane, but that's how it works. He gets to control who's on the air, who's not on the air. He gets to control who announces the game. Thus, they have the worst play-by-play announcer in sports, I think. But it doesn't matter because John Henry likes him, so they're okay with it. But he controls the media. There's rarely one of the only people who ever steps out of line is Dan Shaughnessy, who will ridicule, who will criticize Red Sox ownership, but he has to qualify it every time and say he owns the paper. And I am sure Henry and Pizzuti hate him and can't wait for him to retire. And believe me, when he retires, he's not going to be replaced by somebody who dares poke fun at ownership. It'll never happen. They'll find someone who is completely on board, who carries water for the ownership of the Boston Red Sox, like most of the media. I mean, this guy in the Herald is Mastronato, completely in the tank for the Boston Red Sox. He doesn't even work for them. I mean, it is sad what the media has become, at least in terms of the Boston Red Sox. There is very little, if any, genuine criticism of anymore. They've handled that. They've taken care of that. You criticize the Boston Red Sox, they will try to silence you. Typical of the the powerful, just elitist, liberal owners. They don't stand for any criticism. They do not. They try to snuff it out, and they don't understand. Why don't people love us? We won 4 World Series. Why don't they love us? Not only do they not love, they can't stand you. The Red Sox are average sports fans, average baseball fans. I can't tell you how many people I hear from who say, I can't even root for this team. I can't stand this ownership, and have tuned out. You've seen the ratings are awful. The radio ratings are incredible. 20 years ago, the Red Sox were getting like 25 shares. Now they're in the ones, on radio, on TV. The ratings are awful, and they just can't figure it out. We're so woke. Why don't they love us? Why do they love Bob Kraft and not us? And well, Bob Kraft's a real person that people like and can relate to. You are not. You are elitist, soccer people and outsiders. And it'll be when the Red Sox sell the team, and they will. I think fans will be thrilled.
When will they sell the Boston Red Sox, do you think? Like, I can't imagine that's anytime soon. I mean,
I don't know. I always hear from people saying he's setting it up to sell. He's going to sell. They're not as interested in this team as they are in their soccer team. They're always Linda Pizzuti's always tweeting about their soccer team, and now they get the racing team, and they get LeBron. And I mean, Fenway Sports Group's worth $7 billion.
Yes,
they've done okay for themselves. And I'm sure,
but their reputation means more to them than owning anything. And sports teams right now are like, that's the darling of investment, right? Like, look at A-Rod. He's been begging to own a sports team in any league. He's been fighting and he's finally getting it. But that's the thing that people crave the most, is the attention on something like this. There's no way that unless they can get something better, there's no way they're partnering with the Red Sox anytime soon.
I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully in my lifetime, they sell and move on, and people, like they get a local guy and a guy that people can relate to. What's the partner? A-Rod is buying the Minnesota Timberwolves. And my reaction to the story when I saw it the first time was his partner's name is Mark Lohr. Good luck to Mark Lohr. Here's my prediction right now. Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lohr have signed a letter of intent to negotiate with Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor and purchase the NBA franchise, according to USA Today. Well, Mark Lohr, you are going to get screwed over. I promise you. If he hasn't already, Mark Lohr is going to be like, what made me go into business with this a-hole? Maybe it was the only way he could get a piece of an NBA team. But there's no doubt in my mind that within 2 years, this will be ugly. They'll be saying someone's going to buy someone out and threatening to sue. And this guy will get screwed over by A-Rod, because that's just the way A-Rod. Includes the NBA. The WNBA is Minnesota Lynx.
Yes.
So they get that going for you. A-Rod
why isn't J-Lo in the mix there? Wasn't J-Lo in the mix for the Mets?
Yeah,
Why
she's not even mentioned in this story. I'm not sure. Yeah, she was supposed to be with him when they bought the Mets. Does this preclude him from buying a baseball team.
Oh, he can go to town. He can buy as many as he wants, I'm sure.
Lee, you know how Mark Lohr made his fortune? I was just looking for that. Made his fortune in e-commerce with diapers.com.
Oh, nice.
Diapers.com was good to Mark Lohr, who's now, I guess, a billionaire. You got to be a billionaire, don't you? To buy an NBA team, to buy any big league team. I don't have the price here. We don't have the price, but I believe it's
reported that's a 1.5
1.4 billion, estimated at 1.4 billion. That's 28th among 30 teams. God, it pays to be a major league or NBA franchise owner. The 28th most valuable NBA team is worth $1.5 billion. Jesus.
Yeah.
And the Minnesota Timberwolves, you know what? I think the price is slipping because someone, they just looted and burned the office. They burned the arena down. If you haven't noticed, if you haven't been paying attention to the news, they're rioting in Minnesota, right outside of Minneapolis again. It is a fluid situation, a breaking story. There was a shooting of a driver, young guy, 20-year-old, Daunte Wright, is that his name? Yes. Cops shot him when he took off. He tried to flee when they stopped him. We don't have details. Yeah, we do have a picture of him here, flashing gang signs and lots of money. Doesn't make him, doesn't mean he should be shot. We'll find out more. The story again is breaking. But Daunte Wright, young, skinny kid, tragic, but we'll find out more. They're supposedly going to release the dash cam, the body cam, and we'll find out a lot then. But, here's the one thing I'll say. It doesn't matter. The cops could have just shot him in cold blood, and the cops could all be going to get charged with murder. The idea that somehow that justifies looting, they've looted a GameStop, a auto parts store, a Walmart,
Foot Locker, of course,
a Brooklyn Center. This is the town. It's called Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, right outside of Minneapolis. They're burning and looting stores, and the video is incredible. Just walking out with box full of Nikes or products and games, and somehow there's a connection between how the officers, what the officers did to Daunte Wright and this. Well, that's the whole problem. That's the problem in these situations. And it's like Saturday Night Live. I can get to that, but I'll give you my quick. They had a cold open with two black anchors, and two whites. And they were arguing about Minnesota and Chauvin trial. And the whole point was the black people, the guy and the woman, it was Kenan Thompson and whatever her name is, are defending rioting and property damage, and the white people, that's never right. You should never destroy property. And they say, oh yeah. And I'm going, is that really what they think? I mean, that's what Saturday Night Live writers think, that black people think it's okay to destroy property if you're not happy with the cops. I would guess if you put that to, a poll, it'd be like 80% say it's wrong. No matter what, it's wrong to riot, to ruin small businesses, to ruin, whatever, GameStop and set it on fire and steal everything.
But what message does that send? Like those GameStop videos I saw over the weekend, like that was so casual. Like they're just there, they're all having a good time.
And it's not universally condemned, which is insane. I say this all the time. We should all be able to agree on one thing, that's bad. Looting, rioting, that's bad. And it doesn't matter what they did to Daunte Wright. If they did shoot him illegally, if it is murder, they'll go to trial. It's on camera. There's witnesses. His girlfriend is in the car. She was injured, treated and released, I believe. He was driving after he got shot for a while, and then he hit another car, and they, treated him. They gave him medical treatment at the scene, and he died. That's awful, but we don't know all the facts. We'll find them out, and if the cops are guilty, then you try him and put him in prison. But the idea that, you killed a young black guy, the cops killed a young black guy, I'm going to GameStop. How can we not all condemn that together? Everyone just say that's insane, that's criminal, that's wrong. That GameStop guy who owns that store, the people who work there did nothing to you. I mean, the idea that there are a bunch of people who say, oh, look, the cops did something we don't like, let's go get whatever, some shoes. I mean, that shouldn't be allowed. That shouldn't be defended in any way by SNL or comment, whoever, by CNN or MSNBC. We'll see. It'll be all over the news tonight. And there'll be some people who make that leap who say, yeah, but they shot the kid. And I'll be like, yeah, good. Let's charge him. Let's convict him. Do whatever it takes. You don't justify looting. I mean, I can't believe we've reached that point where we say that what the cop did is awful. And we don't know yet. Again, we don't know. But what the cop did was awful. Let's go to GameStop, or let's go to the Foot Locker. It's nuts. And it's still going on. I assume, when the sun comes up and everyone's getting tired, and there'll be a reprieve, but they're going to do it again tonight. We don't even, if we find out that Daunte Wright was unarmed, even though he was flashing gang signs and showing cash on Facebook, if we find out he's unarmed, he looks young, he looks slight, small, that's going to be a terrible visual. Say this kid was wrong. He was fleeing from the cops. He wouldn't stop. But if he's unarmed and he didn't do, it's going to get really ugly again. And the trial starts again today, resumes today, which is not going well for the prosecution. I should say not going well for the mob either. And God knows what's going to happen if Derek Chauvin, and it's a real possibility, is not, I don't think he's going to get acquitted. There could be a hung jury. The evidence is not going great for the prosecution if you followed it at all. The defense actually asked if one of the prosecution witnesses could be a defense witness. They were so helpful to the defense, and he wasn't the only one. There were a few, medical. There's the witnesses there. The firefighter woman. They weren't great in the end. Prosecution. She was okay, but in the end, defense hasn't even started yet, and it looks like a very real possibility that he'll at least have a hung jury, or at least be convicted on the lesser charge and get 4 or 5 years, which will never placate the mob. It's going to get bad too. This week, if the defense starts calling witnesses and defense does well, that's going to be an ignition point. That's going to be like, people are going to want to riot just for that. It's not going to take a decision by the jury. If it's just going well for the defense, for Chauvin, and so far I think it is. Derek Chauvin's a little guy. Do you know how small he was? I didn't realize this. He's like 5'7", 140. And, there's a clear, we don't have to go over, we'll do this another day. We'll go over all the charges another day, and how tough it's going to be to convict him on everything, which is what the mob demands. It's going to be dicey.
It is. When you started this, you were talking about SNL. It is. Was it Tim? Who was the one who tweeted over the weekend who brought up a great point where it's okay? So SNL is now endorsing this type of behavior. So do we infer now that they're okay with the Capitol riots? Like, so does their content get taken down from YouTube like everybody else? Somebody put that correlation.
It's a good question, and I didn't tweet this because I don't really want to get into it, but what happened last night in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, is much, much, much worse than what happened at the Capitol. I mean, the Capitol, again, the only person who died as a result of the riot, as far as we know, is Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by a cop who still is unnamed. Most of the people there were just trespassing. Most of the people, other than, a couple of idiots like the guy who took the podium, weren't stealing things. They were just walking around taking pictures, and lots of those people are still in jail with no bail. It's amazing. And the night before, 2 nights ago, they set the ICE, the Immigration and Customs office in Portland, on fire. Antifa did, not BLM. They said Antifa, and blocked the exits to try and keep people trapped inside and burn them alive. What they did 2 nights ago, much, much worse than anything at the Capitol. But again, I say this all the time. I condemn all violent mobs. I mean, I condemn this mob. I condemn the one in Portland. I condemn the one in DC on January 6th. The only one side defends violent mobs, and they will do it again. I'm telling you, watch tonight. Pay attention, because there'll be people saying, this is understand not justified, but certainly this is understandable because an unarmed, if he's unarmed, we'll find out. An unarmed black guy got shot, and they'll say, "Yeah, well, I can understand why they'll loot." What? I mean, stop that! There's no connection. Well, they're both wrong. They're both crazy. They're both violent crimes. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I just have a bad feeling, especially if the defense testimony is going well for Chauvin. It ain't going to go well for the folks, the poor people in Minneapolis and Brooklyn Center, who are never even heard of Brooklyn Center, but it's got a lot of stuff there that they can loot. They got a Walmart, and I mean, you can go in a Walmart, and just take stuff because the cops did something you don't like. Anyway, speaking of, we got a few other things to get to here, Cullen. I want to get to Whitlock. I want to get to this. There is a connection. Black Lives Matter, and we've talked about them before. And sometimes, hell, we get in trouble when we talk about Black Lives. Tell the truth about Black Lives Matter because, as we know, it's a Marxist organization. 3 women founded it. They are Marxist. They are on tape admitting they're committed Marxists. They are dedicated to defunding the police, to destroying the nuclear family. They don't believe in the family. They don't, and ending prisons. They don't believe in prison. They're a very, very radical outfit. But that didn't stop many, many celebrities from giving them money. We've talked about some of them, like John Cena and lots of corporations, gave them money, gave them millions. They're believed to have over $1 billion, although there's there's not real confirmation. It's not really documented so well, but they're believed to have lots of money somewhere. Now we know where some of it's going. One of the BLM co-founders, a woman, and I'll get her name, bought $1.4 million worth of houses. It's like a compound. Her name is Patrice Kahn-Kullers, leader of the Black Lives Matter movement and self-described Marxist, recently purchased a $1.4 million home. I believe it's like 3 homes together in a very exclusive Los Angeles neighborhood called Topanga Canyon, which is 1% black. It's one of the whitest, richest communities in LA or anywhere. A former hippie enclave in the 60s. But that's, I guess, where we found out where some of the money is going to this Marxist so she can buy a compound. And, you think what you want of the story. It's noteworthy. Wouldn't you call that newsworthy that one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, a devout Marxist, just bought some real estate in an extremely rich white neighborhood? Well, I saw this on Twitter. Jason Whitlock tweeted about it. Jason Whitlock, we all know Whitlock. He's a free agent now. Oh, this is. Do you have the tweet there?
It's tough to read because it's.
There's the tweet.
Yeah,
so he tweets about it. I believe it was a New York Post story that he just retweeted. You kind of hit the little tweet button, and Whitlock tweeted it. It doesn't offer any opinion or anything. It just says
yes, he added to the
she's
headline.
With the people.
Yeah, she's with her people.
She's with her people. Yeah, because she's in Whitlock talks about this stuff all the time. He criticizes Black Lives Matter all the time. It's one of his things. You see him on Fox News now or wherever. He's not with Outkick anymore, but he's still out there and he's still critical of Black Lives Matter. And he links to the story. Twitter suspends him. Locks his account and suspends him, and I believe he's still down because it's just mind-boggling how brazen these social media companies are. And we've talked about it many times with Trump and Facebook or YouTube, and being taken. Well, we talked the other day about Ron DeSantis had a roundtable with like doctors and medical professionals about the pandemic and against obviously he's against lockdowns and he's been proven right. They took it down from, is that YouTube? That was YouTube, correct?
Yep.
They didn't allow the governor and one of the leading voices in one of the leading decision makers on this whole pandemic, when he was with doctors, I believe, and healthcare professionals in the roundtable, and they won't allow you to see it. It's just insane. So they're protecting the woman who founded Black Lives Matter from publicity, because it's really, and I got a story right here, it's not a lot of commentary. It's just like, isn't that crazy? This Marxist BLM leader bought very expensive real estate in an all-white Tony all-white town. And you see these kind of stories all the time, these real estate stories. Dave Portnoy's buying a mansion in Miami, or, whoever selling, some celebrity, Sly Stallone selling his.
Let's put it this way. Jason Whitlock didn't write the story. He
didn't.
Tweeted somebody else's words, and that somebody else that tweet is still up, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Well, the New York Post story is still up, which is surprising on Twitter, but surprising because we know they won't hesitate to censor the New York Post. But I don't know where it ends. We ask this all the time, where it ends. That is nuts that he literally tweets a story about real estate.
So the excuse is it's violating our rules against posting private information. You may not publish or post other people's private information without their express authorization or permission.
That is frightening. Obviously, it wouldn't matter if you said Don Jr. We'll get to Donald Trump Jr. Don Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle, celebrity couple, at least to the right wing, to the Trumpkins, to the MAGA movement. Those two bought a house in Miami, I believe, in the neighborhood with where Brady and Giselle are going to live, whatever that's called, because I think Jared Kushner and Ivanka are there too. But they bought a house for like $8-9 million. Do you think they cared who retweeted that? I used to see these celebrity real estate stories and just say, who cares about that? And you know what I do now? I read them. I see who's selling the house, how much they made on it, and they have pictures of the house because it's available. It's on Zillow. It's on real estate. So they throw it together, particularly, like sensational publications like tabloids and TMZ. They always have those real. Sly Stallone just sold his, or I don't know if he sold it. He's selling his place in LA for over $100 million. And he's moving to Miami to be with it because he's a Trump guy too. He's moving to Miami, or I'm sure he has already spent a lot of time in Miami. But I always look at these and you always wonder, like, how can people afford that? It'll be some half-assed B-list actor and they'll have like a $9 million house in Malibu. I'm like, man, or athletes. You see these athletes and they're like DeMarcus Cousins the other day put his house for sale, and it looked like a freaking Four Seasons hotel. Put his house up for sale for like $20 million. And I guess, it's the NBA. DeMarcus Cousins been around for a while. He can afford it. But they have these crazy, or like Matt Stafford, obviously moves from Detroit to LA, and they put the house up for sale, and they show you the house, and they give you the real estate listing. And it's interesting, and it's, it's clickbait, but you can't do it about the BLM founder. Like, she's sacred. I mean, if it were some whatever religious leader or something, I'd be like, well, so what? This is a BLM leader, and
he also legit didn't violate the rules. He didn't do what they were accusing him of doing. So how does that play out? That means that they're manually dictating what to censor. So she goes out and she reports his tweet, and Twitter personally reviews it and says, "Oh, it's Jason Whitlock. This is where he stands. See you later." It's wild.
It's wild, and it's wrong. And I understand half the country doesn't care or supports it because it's their side. They control Twitter, they control Facebook, YouTube, and I'm sure this meeting Saturday with all the CEOs and corporate leaders included, Jack Dorsey or Mark Zuckerberg or whoever from Google, which is creepy. These people control so much; they have so much power, and they lie to your face and say they're not political. And they're not whatever, a platform. They're just publishing, but they're not. They're liars, and this is scary. I'm gonna be taken down. I'm I'm not on their radar, maybe like Whitlock is, but I wouldn't think twice about retweeting a story like that or commenting on it, and then boom, you're suspended. Like Whitlock, I'm looking forward to seeing Whitlock come back and write about it or talk about it. I'm not sure, like, where or how he could do that. I guess go on Fox News, but I mean, if he does it on Twitter, they're just going to take it down. It's scary, and you wonder. Like, certain people have given up on Twitter, like guys that I like Dan Bongino or Greg Gutfeld or Mark Levin. They've given up. They've quit Twitter, or at least commenting on Twitter. Sometimes they'll post their show stuff, but And it's too bad because those guys were good, and I enjoyed, reading them, Gutfeld on Twitter.
I was thinking about it a lot this weekend because we've been texting about it a little bit. Nothing replicates Twitter. Like nothing is, and I used to think Twitter was the dumbest thing in the world, but nothing replicates the ability to get news and watch people fall on their face about said news.
And I say this all the time. And they say, oh, what do you see? I'm a news junkie. I used to drive all over town buying newspapers. And then when the internet, I had a bunch of sites that I'd click on and read the news. Now you can do that on one site, on Twitter. I mean, I'll still go other places occasionally, but if you want to get up in the morning and see what happened in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, you're going to see it on Twitter. You're going to
the news is being created on Twitter. Like somebody is doing something stupid on Twitter, creating a story to talk about or to read, right?
We say this all the time. If you want to follow the riots in any city, Andy No is a guy, Andy NGO. He's the guy who wrote the book about Antifa. He probably steals and lifts stuff from other people, but I don't care. He's got video. If you want to see what happened last night in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, go to Twitter, go to Andy No. It's a bunch of video. This guy, Jack Posoyak, I don't even know how to say his last name. He's a big Twitter guy, and he has video, and they got rioting, and they got, fires burning, and it's all there. It's a great news source, and unfortunately, it's run by the woke mob who doesn't even pretend that they're neutral anymore. They've taken down Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we all know she's a right winger, and she triggers the left like nobody else. She's like bigger than Trump now when it comes to, the usual, all the people, the CNNs and the SNLs. They've taken it down twice, and both times said, "Oh, it was an accident." It was an accident. It's never an accident when they take down, AOC. Well, they don't take down AOC, but they never will. And if they do, they'll never say it was an accident because accidents only happen one way on Twitter and Facebook. But whatever. Let's get to the good part of Twitter. That should be when Donald Trump Jr. retweets me and to his 7 million followers. I watched this live. Don't ask me why. I don't think I've ever watched 5 minutes of Jimmy Kimmel. I hate him. I can't stomach any of the shows. Colbert, Fallon, they're all. Seth Meyers, by the way, is the worst. I read about him on Twitter. I see online on different places. There'll be cuts and clips on how dedicated these guys are to just politics. I mean, they're like a extension of CNN or MSNBC. They have their political commentators. Colbert doesn't even try to be funny anymore. He's just a political hack, promoting his side. And so is Kimmel. And I know Kimmel he's gone. He hates Trump and loves Biden. And he and Howie Hamptons, they spend the holidays together talking about how they can, continue to repair their image. Jimmy Kimmel, by the way, no one has done blackface like Jimmy Kimmel. He went all in. He pretended to be Karl Malone at one point. He's done a lot of things that he's hoping they won't dig up. And the more woke he is, the more progressive he is, the less chance they're going to dig up that stuff, just like with Howard Stern. But anyway, Kimmel has Hunter Biden on Thursday or Friday. I don't know. I was flipping around late at night for some reason, watching Masters highlights, and went and put it on, and introducing Hunter Biden. And it's unbelievable the way he treats Hunter Biden. It's incredible. He's fawning over him. He's giggling with him. He's talking about how great the book is. Now, does anyone think Jimmy Kimmel read the book? Does anyone think he read one page of the book? He starts joking and dumping on Donald Trump Jr. in the interview with Hunter Biden. Doesn't, mention who's the big guy. What about Tony Bobolinsky, this respected Navy guy? Was he lying about you? Doesn't really get into other to Ukraine, other than to say, they impeached Trump over Ukraine. I mean, there's so much you could ask Hunter Biden. I mean, he could still promote his book. I mean, you have him on there, and it can be done. I'm still curious to see if Hunter Biden will do any hostile interviews. Will he go on anyone that's not 100% in the tank? We've seen him with CBS, and now we've seen him with Kimmel. And I got to say, I have very little respect for Kimmel. I lost what little I had. It was embarrassing. He was fawning over Hunter freaking Biden. He doesn't even joke about the Parmesan cheese, which is kind of a tired joke. Yeah. But as we know, he told CBS that he smoked Parmesan cheese because he thought it was crack. Kimmel is so far gone as a comedian. He doesn't even joke about that, about this loser sitting in front of you. And we've all seen the pictures of him with hookers and, naked and crack pipes and just embarrassing, bizarre stuff. This alleged comedian doesn't even go there because he's so in the tank for Biden and he hates Trump so much. But anyway, it was embarrassing. I tweeted about it. Don Jr. retweeted me and got a lot of reaction. And I'm telling you, I wish I got reaction from Kimmel because it is, it is embarrassing what he's become. It used to be somewhat funny and iconoclastic and make fun of people. And, we all know he had big-breasted women bouncing on trampolines back in the day when he was with Adam Carolla on the Mance Show. Boy, those days are gone. He is.
Who's watching Kimmel that gives a fuck about Hunter Biden? And if they do give a crap, they want it to be funny. And he brought nothing to the table. It was like
they want it to be funny or critical. I mean,
critical, yeah. But you're not looking to Kimmel for criticism. You know what I mean? Like,
you're not. I mean, critical and funny. Like joking, saying you smoke Parmesan, whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
And
if you're Hunter Biden, you go there to be made fun of to sell books. Like that's what you go in thinking. Instead, he gets an opportunity to legit pitch and rehab his entire image.
Right. And I'm sitting there going, you've seen the pictures, Jimmy? Have you seen do you know what he did? He left his wife for his dead brother's wife, left his dead brother, or cheated on his dead brother's wife with his dead brother's wife's sister, cheated on her with a stripper who he knocked up, denied he knocked her up, met another woman when he was high, married her 5 days later. He's got 5 kids, but he says he only has 4 because he still denies one of the kids. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about one of the biggest scumbags in the world, and you're doing PR for him. I mean, have some dignity, Jimmy Kimmel. Have some pride. I mean, what you did, and I realize most of the people watching you are on your side, but what you did was humiliating professionally. But, who am I to say? He's probably making $10 million a year to have, very poor ratings and not a lot of laughs, but he's safe. Nobody except, people, who tweet at me are showing the blackface pictures or talking about all the things, all the offensive, sexist, misogynist things he's said and done over the years. He's kept that, that's under wraps for now because he is
now he has a love story to go out there and brag about.
Do you ever wish you'd had Apple Care?
Yeah, that would have been a good.
There's one other thing I want to ask about because it's the end of the book and you are married now. You found love, but the way you found love, you have to understand that on paper this doesn't sound good, okay? And correct me if I have any of the details wrong. Okay. You meet some strangers. Yeah. They say, "Oh, we have a girl you should meet." Yeah. They give you her phone number. Yeah. You text her like late at night.
That? Yeah, exactly.
She's sleeping. Yeah. She's like, "Leave me alone. I'm asleep." The next morning she texts you. You guys have like lunch together or something. Yeah. In an hour you tell her you love her. Yeah. She tells you she loves you. Yeah. Then she finds out you are a crack addict.
Well, I tell her. Yeah. I mean, within the hour before I told her I loved her so that she had an out, I told her. I said, look, I have a real problem. But it's amazing.
And then you marry her a week later.
Yeah.
This is...
They clap.
That's the clapping of the audience.
Married while high on crack, he proposes. He marries this broad, this woman. A week later, I mean, not her fault, but God, that's what he asks. That's what he asks a guy who, again, was sleeping with his dead brother's widow while he was still married, and then cheated on her with her sister. And you know what else? Hunter Biden watches is not funny. He's not smart. He's not like charismatic. There's even the stories about drugs and the rock bottom kind of things that are usually pretty good from addicts and are terrible. He's terrible, and he's lying. He lies. So I'm not sure who thinks he's a great guest. If you don't push him and poke him and probe, he's not a good guest. And Jimmy doesn't care. He just wants to be with a Biden. He just loves the Bidens, Jimmy Kimmel. It's embarrassing. We will leave it there. We'll be watching the rioting, the looting, the unrest that Ayanna Pressley calls for. We need unrest in the streets as long as there's unrest in our lives. So she's supporting this. There'll be arrests, and I assume the vice president will bail everybody out if they even require bail. Bail's just for we only just for MAGA morons who trespass. The Antifa and BLM guys, it's a revolving door. Let them go. They can do it again tonight. They're going to do it again tonight. It's going to get wild, but we will stay on top of that and watch. We'll be watching following the Chauvin trial, which is not going well for the prosecution, but who knows? We'll see what happens this week, and we'll be looking to see if Jason Woodlock ends up back on Twitter, or where he ends up, because he is going to come out firing. I have a feeling that will be interesting. We will see, but we will leave it there. Thanks to Shea Concrete and Allied Paving and DCU.